One is on manual deployment. So in the earlier session, we exclusively configured all 10 to 12 AWS web services. We successfully demonstrated and understood the concept of how the CI/CD pipeline works in the AWS using developer tools. Now, this is how all automation tools, like from the source code management to the Kubernetes, we are trying to integrate all the tools into one pipeline. That pipeline will demonstrate to us how the overall DevOps cycle works in the real environment. This is a kind of demonstration which directly puts you onto the live environment. So that's why here I'm trying to demonstrate the whole deployment into two parts. One is manual, second one is automation. In automation, we are completely taking the concept of GUI. Integrate. And first you understand how the tools are integrated manually and how the CI/CD pipeline works out. And as said very clearly, we have different views, not different views, different types of strategies available in the CI/CD. If you come from the shell script, if you are stronger in Linux, use a complete shell scripting for deployment. Or if you are stronger in Python, you build your own pipeline in the Jenkins. Even if you are stronger in Lambda expressions, Lambda functions in the cloud, you can deploy it. Or using ECS, ECR, EKS. Now industry was moving towards the Docker and Kubernetes. Almost all applications nowadays are microservice-based applications. So if you want to deploy, if you want to generate a containerized apps, and if you want to deploy containerized apps continuously to the production servers in a microservice-based way, obviously you must be aware of two tools. There is no doubt at all. One is Docker and Kubernetes. So containerized application development, containerized app deployment as microservices, or web services, or web application, or mobile-based applications, doesn't matter. But obviously, as a DevOps engineer, you must deal with three kinds of application. One is mobile applications, web-based applications, and integral of the web services and microservices. So forget about whatever the application it is, whether it is a Java-based application or .NET-based application or PHP-based or Python-based or Hadoop-based. So as a DevOps engineer, you must understand the whole process, not theoretically as well as practically. You should understand practically. That's when you jump into the real environment, depends on your experience, depends on your company, depends on your client compliances. They may give a pre-production environment or production environment. In pre-production or production environment, our duty is it's not predictable. Most of the people are, of course, there is no right and wrong answers here. Depends on their experience, depends on their environment. The people speak differently as per their experience. But end of the day, as a DevOps engineer, configuration environment, deployment automation, infrastructure maintenance, and maintaining the best automation practices from the requirement gathering to the monitoring. We have numerous tasks, and number of tasks are there. It's impossible to say, it's impossible to cover each and every task as a single DevOps engineer. That's a don't bluntly say that I'm doing everything. I'm going for infrastructure pipeline development. I'm going for application deployments, and I'm going for DB deployment. No. You progressively define your experience in the resume. So suppose if I put 4 years experience, initially I started as a career with the build and release engineer or maybe DevOps engineer. In the coming last 2.5 years, I worked on a complete on-premises CI/CD pipeline in the pre-production environment. There I was used different automation tools using Docker and Kubernetes, Jenkins and Ansible. Now, last 1.5 year onwards, our applications are moved into the cloud environment. I have a good knowledge and experience on the a bit AWS administration, and I'm doing CI/CD pipeline in the AWS. And parallelly, we are working on the infrastructure. So don't put entire experience in one project. It's very impossible. So your explanation should be changed automatically as per the requirement, as per the JD. And don't blindly say, I've done everything from scratch. It's really hesitate to speak. Instead, they will ask so many questions. If you put some experience from the big companies, no company in the real world, especially, unless until your company doesn't have a process from the scratch. If there is no process in the DevOps, then they call for us to develop the entire pipeline from the scratch. But you must always understand how to understand the existing pipeline, how to understand the existing environment, understand how the application pipeline was designed, and how the infrastructure is going to be designed, or how they are planning. Then how you are adapted, or how the company adapted the DevOps team into their projects. So there, once they started asking based on your explanation, they can understand whether this guy is really worked in a real-time environment or not. So here our task is instead of course, we need to speak every tool individually. I need to learn about Docker, I need to learn Kubernetes, Ansible, maybe blah blah blah. But how these all the tools are integrated? How with a single click, how the entire environment is triggered, how my application is deployed into the Kubernetes cluster. It may be a pre-production or production. So depends on your experience. Again, I'm repeating, if you are first time coming into the IT, don't put the production experience. That's my valuable advice. Otherwise, you can take your own decision. Because once you put the production experience, a number of questions they'll ask. It's very difficult to face if really a real-time person who are working production environment since long years, then you cannot face him or you cannot face her. Because the way they're asking the question in the deployment issues in the production, monitoring issues in the production, scalability issues, and availability issues, security breaches, compliances, and handling the tickets, and how the entire infrastructure is maintaining your server, production grade server maintenance, what kind of servers they are maintaining, so what is the software they are maintaining, so like how many clusters you are managing, cluster availability, cluster monitoring, so the performance issues. So a number of questions they will ask you. But pre-production is different and production is different, as you know very well. So whether it's a pre-production or production, our job is, we already gave so many times explanation in the DevOps, right? As a DevOps engineer, our job is try to push your application from the one stage to another stage successfully without having any manual intervention. I can't blindly say there is a complete automation. Impossible. In the industry, take any industry from the small scale to big scale company, there is no complete automation. No doubt at all. If they are saying in the sense, they are bluffing. No doubt at all. This is a continuous adoption process, especially if you come from the big monolithic application to the microservice based application, distributed architecture, the configuration, infrastructure, databases, network configuration, server maintenance, and repository maintenance, and migrations. So many things will be influenced on the application movement. That's why there are some legacy systems are there. There are new innovative configuration environment may be adapted in a project environment, and you need to synchronize it. Some projects may not heavily require the complete DevOps pipeline. Some projects may require heavily. So instead of talking about the strategies, instead of talking about the pros and cons in the DevOps culture, if you put some experience, they expect some kind of explanation from us. They expect some kind of real-time explanation. What is that? How to do it? How to develop it? How to build it? How you successfully achieve the objective called as a CACD. So there, your explanation, your tool integration, the how we define the architecture, the how we tell the scripts in the Groovy. Groovy is one kind of scenario. So it may be anything, right? So AWS, if you go the cloud environment, you can go with Elastic Beanstalk. You deploy the application using Elastic Beanstalk. You can deploy an application to either a combination of auto scaling and load balances with EC2, or maybe Fargates, or maybe Kubernetes cluster deployments, or maybe complete cloud formation or complete Terraform. So that's why there are nearly 10 to 15 ways are there how you trigger the entire environment into your automation pipeline. The different automation scripting languages, like you can use a shell scripting or Python or Groovy or Go language or Java language or Node.js. That's why don't too smart about to say I need to learn everything, I need to focus everything. It's impossible. Everybody. It's not possible to everyone. So let us go and design things. How you this is completely it may take another 10 hours. The first we'll split down the manual deployment. We can keep it for 4 hours or 5 hours. Once this entire process is configured, then we are going to develop a complete pipeline. With my hand, it will take another 3 hours. So totally 10 hours I'm planning for this. And here, no need to tense, because some of the guys already completed up to almost their ending, and especially who come from Canada and US, we simply completed the AWS. Not completed in the sense we have our own way of saying like. So the first question maybe you may get in your mind: is it possible to understand the approach without finishing the tools? 100%. Why this is explaining is, as you know, my attitude is I'm not too much faster. I'm slow. I'm tortoise. That's why in these directions, I don't want to disturb your overall objective, because everybody wants to say, I want to finish my pipeline. I want to know how it looks like. Even I want to start interview. Again, I'm repeating, by understanding these 10 hours, I confidently says that you just go and attend the interview. So that 2 pipelines, not 2, 3. 3. Some of the guys may finish the 4. Now who come from the US and Canada, we already finished the deployment in the cloud. Now manual deployment I'm going to explain. Third one is complete Groovy scripting. Then so that you can put your resume successfully and you can start your interviews. So for that reason, and again, I don't want to repeat the entire process. This is the one final demo, not demo, complete live demonstration, which is going to be explain all the tools in two ways. One is a manual and automation. I don't say, again I don't explain it. This is the one time finishing. So rest of the things will explain the tool individually. After end of the tool completion, you open this demonstration video and you can feel it. Again, I don't want to repeat for the 10 hours demonstration for both of you guys. That's why I merged all the 10 members, even few more members comes into the join. So definitely we'll see. Now, what is the agenda then? In manual deployment, so what is the agenda? We need to integrate the source code management. In the source code management, we are going to take the local repository as Git, and shared repository, or maybe a central repository. Okay, central repository. Source code repository or 1 second. Chapra class lo na agenda. Yeah, sorry. So the local repository we are using Git, and shared repository we are using central repository, either GitHub or you can say Bitbucket. So that's why, or you can say code commit. Right, that's why I don't want to explain the GitHub and code commit, because we already cover even in the Git. So already explained for the existing batch, Git and GitHub. Maybe for you, we will take the GitHub. That's why my intention is, at least it's not always people use only GitHub. They may use a Bitbucket or they may use a cloud also. That's why in this demonstration, I use a Bitbucket, so that we are covered the three kinds of tools in the repository level. One is the GitHub, Bitbucket, and code commit. Even if you have a free time, you explore yourself SVN. So even some of the companies use SVN. Or if you are come from the Azure repo, if you are still more interested to learn. So there is an ever-ending process, because there are again remaining 5 to 10 tools are there in the repository level. The source code management, you use this tool. And second one is build automation. Build automation tool, we are using the Maven. So Maven, okay. Then the source code analysis. The source code analysis, we use a SonarQube. Then we talk about the binary artifactory. Repository management tool called as we are using, going to say JFrog. So I already explained the nexus to some of one. So even for you, others like Vijay and maybe Kaushik and Nitin, we will discuss about the nexus in the normal classes. So now the Artifactory JFrog. Now we discuss about Artifactory. So this is we are going to say. Then app server. The app server is we are going to use Tomcat as application server in order to deploy applications. Then the continuous integration server, we are demonstrating inside the Jenkins. And the container management tool, we know very well, the Docker, and the configuration environment, and the deployment, okay, and provisioning. For this we use Ansible, and container orchestration, we use what? The Kubernetes. And to manage this entire setup, we are using AWS. APC instances, and we're trying to integrate all these tools. Okay. So Git, Bitbucket, Maven, SonarQube, JFrog, Tomcat, Jenkins, Docker, Ansible, Kubernetes. 10 tools, the mandatory, in the open source based. But how this process works like? The process works. So if you sit in the interview panel, or if you attend interviews, first they will understand your flow, how you are explaining the flow. Could you please tell me how the CI/CD process works in our environment? So now here, when you take the local environment, every developer have their own environment, isn't it? So local dev environment, a local developer. So this is an individual developer will have their own host. They build a source code and they are trying to keep the track of Git. So we'll discuss. I will explain the, I don't take, that's what I'm saying, 10 hours in the sense, whatever the info required on the fly, we are trying to demonstrate. We don't go deeply, but we are highly focused on how to design the tools effectively, the scripting part. And individual dive, anyhow, I already finished for some of one, and we are going to enter into the tools. So individual tool dive, definitely there. So that's what the agenda here is. Instantly, within 10 hours, you should keep quiet. Then you can confidently start your talks to anyone. How to explain my CI/CD and what is. That's why I already explained 1 hour videos, 1 hour demonstration to you in the real time how it works out. Even in the coming weekend or other weekends, we are also going to take one more demonstration on ITL management, change management, and other things, how it works in the real time. So now as an individual developer, once they will develop the source code, and they are trying to develop the source code, they are trying to keep track of the source code. They want to maintain the they want to maintain the they want to maintain the code. They want to understand how the code will be going to affect, who will modify it, when it is modified. So how to track the versions of each and every source code. So there is a source code management is required. So how to perform and why we need the Git, and how the Git helps to the dev team, and why the source code management is required for the DevOps, and what way the DevOps engineer is trying to focus on the repository. We'll see. But the agenda here is first understand the complete pipeline theoretically first. Then take the tool by tool, configure on the environment, and try to connect all the tools for single click. If you feel how the deployment is done, then we'll go to the Jenkins. We'll continuously write the logic using the Groovy scripting, so that manually you know how to explain it. Even through automation script, how can you deploy the all applications into the Kubernetes cluster by integrating all the tools. So here, once the developer have their own local development environment, according to their requirement, their task, they are trying to push the source code to the GitHub, right? So this is a tool called, so you can use a GitHub or Bitbucket, maybe a code commit, or maybe other. So DevOps engineer more focus on the GitHub repository. You must create the branch. You must create the branch. You must manage the branch. You must create the users. You must do some administrative activities. Like you need to define webhooks. You need to, maybe in case if you want to migrate from SVN to the GitHub, or Git to any cloud source code management like code commit, or if you want to migrate from SVN to Git, or Git to SVN, or other. So user creation, branch creation, locking, unlocking, protecting branches, creating the branches for the various teams, okay, and giving a proper help to the developers when they are at the risks, when they are at merging issues, and uh, how you freeze your code, and how to perform soft code freeze and hard code freeze, how to take up the backup of the branches. And this is again administrator, like DevOps engineer job. Okay, so not only pulling the code from the repository into the Jenkins in order to trigger the build against the different environments. That's one-time job, or weekly once happen, or maybe monthly once. And moreover, I said very clearly, every day there is no heavy deployments. Every day there is no heavy deployment. Weekly once or bi-weekly, twice, or whenever the changes are really happen. If the changes are really planned for the next release, then you must deploy an application. So once the source code is keep into the repository, next uh, next there is next line is build automation. See, in the build automation, here you need to compile the code, compile the source code, run the unit test, and source code analysis, package generating, which generating the packages, and what next? Once it generates the packages, uh, publishing, publish the artifactory. It's again more challenging job. So this is the entire process is keep into or performing inside the build automation tool. Like you can say, this is something like using a tool called as your required tool, like either Maven or Gradle. Maven is going to integral with the different tools, like the steps I already explained. One is SonarQube. The second one is Nexus or JFrog. So continuously, this Maven is trying to integrate with the Nexus, SonarQube. So why? Because continuous integration is the key factor before delivery and deployment. So here, this is, I can say, a Nexus or maybe a JFrog Artifactory, and this is we can say source code analysis like SonarQube. So whenever the developer build the code, and whenever they push the source code, using automation, build automation, pull the source code from the repository. A lot of people always confusing at your explanation. That's what I'm saying. So knowing the tool is not okay, and having experience is not okay, but you should express how the pipeline works in the real time. You should not miss the complete flow. So whenever developer push the source code to the repository through build automation, the Maven is going to compile the code, run the unit test. If any tests are failure, you report to the concerned development team. Then some kind of source code analysis using SoraCube and define the quality profiles and quality gates. And if still the code is not passed against the quality profiles and gates, you try to revert back to the developers. Again, developer will fix it. Again, they'll send back to the GitHub. Again, your Jenkins will take the code from the repository, again perform the compile and run the test and source code analysis. Once the analysis is done, you go with the generating the package like a jar or where or here. Once packages are created, we have to push the artifactory to the Nexus using the Maven. Again, I'm repeating, you cannot deploy first of all. Remember it. You cannot deploy into the Tomcat, or you cannot deploy into the WebLogic and the QA or dev or maybe pre-production or production. They must continuously generate. Continuous. That's in the beginning I said. Continuous in the sense what? Continuously. Every change, as whenever change is made by the developer, how these changes are made by the developer, how the changes are picked. There are two ways, pull and push based mechanism. Pull in the sense, execute the build against the scheduled time. Push in the sense, execute the automated build whenever the changes are there. So every time there is a changes, there is a drastic changes in the source code. Drastic changes in the sense what? As a DevOps engineer, your job is what? You have to hand over the latest updated code from the dev server to the pre-production or production as application, either in the form of web services or microservice, doesn't matter, forget about it. The latest synchronized artifact we have to submit. And all these teams are working in umbrella. If hundreds and hundreds of people working in a big scale project, for every changes, you have to tune the entire, you have to run the entire cycle. Every cycle is going to be interact with the tools and environments and going to generate some output. That output is application. N number of changes are there. Every changes we have to predict and we have to represent as a build format. That's my major version dot, minor version dot, hotfix dot, build number I said. Before pre-production, before production, you must give the product build numbers. So by seeing the build number, I can understand the latest builds and earlier builds. That's it. It's a continuous process. Every process, for every continuity, there must be a Nexus repository. There must be artifactory JFrog. You should maintain the latest artifacts. So whenever you push and publish the artifacts into the Nexus or JFrog, this is the time you need to decide how can I going to deploy into the things. Okay. Now, next, once the Nexus contains, not only Nexus and JFrog, once the repository contains latest artifactory, latest binary, latest artifacts. Here again I'm repeating, the Nexus or JFrog contains either var formats or maybe containers also. That's not. Here if I use a Maven, you are running the build lifecycle to generate only var, or if you really integrate, suppose you are working on the microservice based applications, then as a Java developer from the scratch, you open the Eclipse, you open the Java code, you develop the Java code, you build the Java projects using Maven, and inside the Maven, you will develop the Docker dependencies. So through Maven also you can generate the Docker images. So a lot of people simply Docker, they will explain in an isolated way. But I can't say like that. Even inside the Maven, you can add the Docker plugins. So whenever you perform MVN Docker build, automatically Maven generates the Docker images. Once the Docker images are created, automatically you can push the Docker images into the Nexus, or you can directly push your Docker images into the uh, GitHub, sorry, Docker Hub, if you have your own private repositories. So that's why Nexus is the place where you can maintain your artifacts that can jar or var or images also. Got it, guys? Next, once my Nexus contains the latest artifacts, like my target
deployment.
yep. See, the next procedure is you have to take the code from the Nexus or JFrog that contains a var or image. It means you have to download the code, you have to download the file, you have to download the published artifacts. Before downloading the artifacts into somewhere, here there is another one. Another person will parallelly work with you. That's called infrastructure engineers, infrastructure pipeline. That's why on which pipeline you're working? Are you working on application pipeline or infrastructure pipeline? Hmm? So you can say both experience. Or honestly telling you who come into the IT first time, I'm into the application pipeline. So your job is how to deploy the generated packages into my environment. If environment is not yet ready, if environment is not yet ready, how you provide the environment, how you provisioning the environment, provisioning of the servers, provisioning of the operating system, networks, databases, security, monitoring, how you configure the infrastructure. Got it? That's why infrastructure as a code. Then you call the cloud formation template or maybe Terraform or ARM templates from the Azure. So got my point. So that's why here a smart engineer, real-time professional, they'll ask you, are you worked on both pipelines? Okay, if you want to say yes, if say yes, tell me exactly how the infrastructure pipeline and application pipelines are integrated. Most of the people never say this kind of things. See, infrastructure is not yet ready. Suppose I have it. So finally, Nexus is going to, Nexus contains what? A final artifact called as a Docker image, private repositories, or your WAR files in. Then you have to deploy into where? Into where? QA servers. If the QA server already configured it, okay. If it is not, suppose you are moving to the cloud, then how can you provision the QA servers? Suppose I want to create a 10 virtual machines for the testing purpose. Then how the infrastructure create the network first? Then how the infrastructure engineer creates the servers? Then how you define the databases? Then how you define the monitoring? And how you define all security principles, inbound and outbound rules? And how he provide the users to each and every developers or QA testers in the QA environment, SIT and pre-production environment. That's why here, so once your package, of course, the whole process is in the existing environment only, whether you can working on the VMware, on-premises environment, that's one more common point. Are you deploying application on on-premises environment or cloud? If it is on-premises, they will allow you working on the VMware workstation, VMware. So if it is a cloud, EC2. So whether it's on-premises deployment or cloud deployment, If existing environment is ready, okay. If it is not there, we have to provisioning using IAC, infrastructure as a code called as a Terraform. Got it? So that's why infrastructure pipeline and as well as what? Infrastructure pipeline as well as application pipeline should be saved on your GitHub repositories. These two pipelines should synchronize it properly, should call it properly so that once infrastructure is ready, on top of the infrastructure, application pipelines are running properly. That's why there are two teams hardly working, not two teams, three teams. Maybe DB deployment. Some companies they will expect everything from you. If you take like Oracle or maybe maybe some Deloitte or some other organization, I'm giving just for spelling, just for example. They'll ask you to define everything. They'll expect DB deployment scripts and they will ask you everything. Depends. So once the Nexus maintains the artifact recall as a var or image, you have to download it, right? How to download it? You have to download the image. So download the artifacts. Download the artifacts. Once you download the artifacts, okay, you need to, if you download the artifacts, after that you can directly deploy application into the pre-production environment, where on each and every server, if Tomcat is running, you have to go and deploy it. Otherwise, not otherwise. Here you need to hold my explanation. You need to strongly register my explanation on your mind logically. Once you download the artifacts, that artifacts may be aware, that artifact may be an image, isn't it? So downloading the artifacts, suppose your Nexus contains only var, but your application needs to be converted into var to container environment you want to. Then you have to download the code. You should know how to create the container. You should know how to create the container. Once the containers are created, latest images you have to push to the Docker Hub. For example, here there is here I'm giving a one registry called as a Docker Hub. So either you can use a Docker, either you can use an Nexus, depends, the Docker Hub. So how to download the code from the artifacts, how to call the logic in order to create the image, how the logic is going to publish the images to the Docker Hub. There you need to integrate a tool called as Ansible. So here we need to write the Ansible playbook. Ansible playbook. Ansible playbook. Using Ansible to do a lot of things, not only deployment, orchestration, configuration management, everything. That Ansible downloads the code from the Nexus. So then generates the image. There you have to integrate some Docker files. So on top of your GitHub repository, you have source code files, you have Jenkins files like pipeline as a code, don't confuse again. Pipeline as a code. Infrastructure as a code. Is called PSC infrastructure as a code, like you can say Terraform, or maybe in the AWS CFT cloud formation template. Here pipeline as a code, Jenkins file. So Jenkins file, Terraform files, Docker files, Kubernetes files, SonarQube properties, build files, A lot of people blindly by heart it. Even a smart people like me, even sometimes if I'm in the cabin, cabin, I'll ask them, tell me what are the mandatory files you are maintaining in the repository. Boom. Every time you people say like pulling the code, you'll try to say like you are trying to say like I pull the code from repository through Jenkins. I'm going, okay, that's cool. Tell me, what is the repository contains? Then repository contains my project code. On top of the project code, I have infrastructure as a code, AAC files like a Terraform files or CloudFormation templates. Then Jenkins file, in Docker files. Got my point? Then different YAML files, like maybe you can write the Kubernetes files. Then playbooks. You have a configuration files, and kinds of SonarQube properties, dot properties. Even if you use Jenkins effectively, uh, shell files depends. Even I forgot to say one more important file. Yeah, properties file, shell files, configuration, playbooks, YAML files. Of course, I forgot that very important point. Anyhow, uh, these are the various files you need to maintain, right? If any one of the file is missing, your CI/CD pipeline cannot trigger it. That's why from the beginning I'm saying don't blindly learn the tools. The tools are integrated, tools are initialized, tools are running through a powerful logic engine called as a scripting or a flow, logical flow. That's we call it a pipeline. The pipeline is nothing but is a collection of series of phases. Each and every phase there is a tool is involved. The tool is going to integrate by the other tools and performing logical statements on your environment. That environment is going to execute our script against the environment with the tools. And finally, your application is going to deploy into the Tomcat or maybe WebLogic or WebSphere, either in the form of a container based or maybe in the form of web applications. There, these Jenkins files, Docker files, Kubernetes files, configuration files, playbooks, properties, shell files. These are all important, which is maintaining on the repository. That's why this is the key point. If you don't understand, see, Jenkins file is, if it is not there, it means CI/CD pipeline. The entire Groovy code is inside the Jenkins file. And Docker file contains what? How to create the images, how to create our custom images, how to deploy, how to push your images to the Docker hub. And Kubernetes YAML file, like it's a number of, like pods creation, deployments, services, configuration maps, secrets, volumes, and playbooks. Playbooks in the sense, it's like a provisioning and the code you are going to call it. So because I said how to call the code from Nexus, how the Ansible playbook downloads the images, how the playbook will run the Docker file in order to create the custom image, how the playbook will run the code in order to push the image to Docker Hub. That is a playbook logic. So that's fine. And properties. Yeah, I got it. So there is a Mr. Vijay. I hope you are only person because they don't know anything about my statement. Build profiles in Maven. Yeah. So here, if you, because every environment have their own configuration. Again, as the, suppose I want to build it, again as the, and I need to generate the build. I need to define my build with the different parameters with QA environment and S8 environment. How you run the same build file like a pom.xml file or any build.xml file in Ant or Gradle file, the same file against the different environments I have to run it. That moment I must have build profiles. It's like so different build profiles. build profiles. So different XML files, whatnot. A number of things are there. That's why don't always be explain I'm learning, I'm integrating, but integrating the tools behind these files actually. That every tool will produce one file, guys. So now if you go to this part, so this playbook will download the code from Nexus and run the Docker file if it is there, and build a custom image, then push the images to Docker Hub. So this once it is pull the code and once it is maintained, once it pushed into the Docker Hub. So as of now, Git is covered, GitHub or Bitbucket, Maven, Nexus, SonarQube, Ansible, Docker. So once it is maintains the latest images, maybe if you are in QA, if you are in SIT, and if you are in a production. Now, once the environment configuration is done, once infrastructure is ready, your pipeline again take the code from the Docker Hub, and you need to deploy that application into the QA server or SIT server or UAT server, CL. This is QA and SIT and UAT. Even go with the production too. The production. So that's why you take the code from the Docker Hub. Using Kubernetes, you can deploy the application to the QA server, as well as SIT server, as well as a UAT server. So you should not miss the flow. Here you need to use a Kubernetes YAML file. So whatever the images are there in the Docker Hub, whatever the images are maintained in the Docker Hub, you take that image, deploy into the Kubernetes cluster. The cluster is a QA cluster, the cluster is SIT cluster or UAT cluster. So now, and how this entire tools will be integrated. Got it? You are explain the process. The entire integration, entire tool integration you keep inside CS server called as Jenkins. So Jenkins is a place where you need to set up this place. This is a single environment or multi-configuration environment. So that's why here, whenever the developer changes source code, Jenkins automatically take the code from the repository. Then through Maven configuration or Nexus configuration or Sonar configuration, whatever I explained from the last 1 hour onwards, the whole process should be configured properly on your environment. It is maybe on premises or cloud. Inside the Jenkins, if you use a CS server at Jenkins should configure the Git properly, GitHub properly, and Maven properly, Java configurations, environment configuration, Nexus configuration, SonarQube configuration, Docker configuration, Ansible configuration, Kubernetes, even other tools, and different kinds of servers and authorization, authentication. Okay, so plugins and configuration of your environments. If you integrate the part of the cloud plugins, everything you have to set up the first inside the Jenkins. So whenever your setup is ready, whenever the changes are happening to the repository, here there is a here code detection, how code is detected by the Jenkins here. Always remember it, one of the important notification, important point against the pipeline is always webhooks, guys. Webhooks. Most important. Those webhooks you have to integrate. So because whenever you draw the money from the ATM machine, whenever you send the money to me, automatically I receive the messages, alerts. So whenever the changes are happening at the repository, all our 10 members scattered in different places, then who are working as a building engineer or DevOps engineer, if I really configure the entire setup in the Jenkins, how my Jenkins is going to recognize the code? Got my point? That's why once the Jenkins is recognize the code, how it recognize? You have to set up. You have to set up. That's why in forecasting manner, I said right. Yesterday I explained the cron job. Even at schedule time, that's why continuous integration. A lot of people blindly say definition. What is a continuous integration? N number of times I spoke with you. The same you need to remember it. Whenever changes are made by the developer, can be done either following pull-based mechanism or push-based mechanism. So webhooks, whenever the changes are automatically recognized through webhooks, Jenkins recognizes the effect at the GitHub or Bitbucket. It downloads the source code from repository. Via Maven, it's going to run the complete default lifecycle. There, you have to explain the steps. Compiling the source code, run the unit test, go with the source code analysis. And here source code analysis, you have to define the profiles and quality gates and generate the package and push the packages into the respective repository called as Nexus and JFrog. Once it is uploaded, then once the environment configuration is done, so through Ansible, we are going to download the code from the Nexus, and the playbook contains a logic. That logic is going to understand the importance of the Docker is involved in our CI/CD pipeline or not. If it is involved, the playbook will also run the Docker commands for generating the build. For that, we require a Docker file. Once the Docker file is available on the top of the directory, and once the playbooks are available on your top of the source code directory, the code will download from the repository. Through Maven, it generates the build. It runs the default cycle, successfully push the code into the Nexus or JFrog, download it. Again, create the Docker images, and it's going to be before pushing the Docker images, it's going to check the logins, and once the login is succeeded, you need to push the latest image into the Docker Hub. Once the Docker Hub is maintains the latest images, then through Kubernetes YAML files, again I'm repeating, through Kubernetes YAML file, that YAML file downloads the latest container and going to deploy into the each and every server as a container based server or web application. If it is a container based, obviously the Tomcat container, a physical server, that's what I'm saying, VMware, as well as containers or cloud, isn't it? So each and every server, you must have the whole procedure. You have to configure it, and on top of each server, you need to run our app servers, and on this app server, your application is deployed. Once it is deployed, before moving to the production environment, it is asking for manual approval. If it is a manual approval is done, if you say yes, it is going to be go to the production environment. If you say no, it won't deploy it. Got it? Clear, guys? This is the setup you have to configure it. This is the setup you have to configure it. This is the setup you have to understand. And more on here, the entire, if you're looking at, whenever the changes are happening to the repository, you can directly pass this webhooks, and you can link up to the Docker Hub also. So you can integrate GitHub with the Docker Hub. So here Docker Hub automatically detects the changes with the Git, And based on that, it's going to downloads and generates the images also and push in the Docker Hub. The whole integration process, that's what I'm saying. Don't blindly say one example. Don't explain, don't say only in one way. Don't expect this is the only process available in the real time. N number of logics, N number of steps are there. Even nowadays, they won't use the entire setup. They use a GitHub actions, GitHub, GitLab. So GitHub, GitLab, serverless deployment. So that's why I said 15 ways are there to deploy your application. It means 15 different pipeline ways you can design in the DevOps with hundreds, not 100, can't blind 100, a number of multiple tools are there. So maybe use in Jenkins, somebody was using the code build, or maybe someone is used the Bamboo or TeamCity. But whatever it is, the process is same. So this whole process we are going to achieve. We are going to achieve the target. We need to finish how these tools are configured on the EC2 servers. Got it? Hope the pipeline will be clear. And you may get one more question actually. So here, developers and build engineers and testers and every team is integrated in the part of CI/CD pipeline. So multi-configuration environment, you need to design it. Infrastructure, you need to design it. And all the tools you have to design in the pipeline. And how the developer change the source code to the repository. How the developer know that the code is need to be changed. How the developer will be change the code. How you realize the changes. And how you understand the tickets. That's why in the entire CI/CD pipeline, there is a major tool is always involved, as a Jira or ServiceNow, or maybe IBM Remedy, not IBM, there is a third party, BMC Remedy, something like. So there are different ticketing tools, change management tools, right? So the entire servers, the entire environment, the entire tools, the entire configuration, the entire process will be integrated inside the Jira. So inside the Jira only you receive the tickets. So whenever there is a changes, whenever there is a plan is prepared, Jira will assign create a ticket. The ticket is assigned to the particular developer. Whenever the particular developer, but because how you know that, how you track the process, how you track the process, how developer knows there is a bug which is sent by the QA tester, how the DevOps engineer knows that there is a build failure, how the DevOps engineer knows that there is a branch need to be created, how the DevOps engineer is going to monitor the environment, how they will work on it, how they will recognize it. This is entire. If you are in the small company, they use email. If you are in big scale company, ticketing tool, they use it. So whenever the ticket is assigned, the developer will develop the code and they will push the source code to the repository. Whenever there is a changes into the repository, the Jira or ServiceNow send the ticket to the GitHub. The GitHub send the notification to the Jenkins. Then Jenkins recognize it. Jenkins starts the pipeline. During pipeline, if anything goes wrong, automatically Jira sends the ticketing to the individual responsible teams. And based on that, you have to fix it. Automatically, environment detects the changes in your design pipeline. Whenever the changes in the design pipeline, including production too also. That's why strictly, if you speak, looking at Git, Jira, Maven, SonarQube, JFrog, Tomcat, Jenkins, Docker, Ansible, Kubernetes. And even you can attach the CloudWatch and monitoring tools also there. like Nagios. You can assign a tool called as a Nagios. So got this point? Clear, guys? Any questions to ask me? Okay. So once this theory is clear, you need to set up the whole process. Okay. So that's why uh, requesting you to uh, attend this session another 5-10 hours. Like it means I will kill this and I will finish this topic successfully, so that I will dispatch. So in future there is no further integration with all the batches. So once you have this picture and once you configure it, we'll confidently work on it. So hope you keep this point very clearly in your mind. Okay, so that at least you got an point. Now, next thing is, so here planning. What is our planning actually? Planning is you take the AWS, launch different EC2 servers. Each and every EC2 servers you plan with the source code management. So first you take the local Git and use a Bitbucket. Then I'm requesting you to follow the same. I will explain a sample code. So you can take either simple hello world project, or you can take our Spring Pet Clinic project running in internet as a free Spring based application, or I will give some e-commerce code. So you add whatever the example, whatever the application you want, you take it and try to demonstrate. So first you must create the repository. So first step is step one, create the shared repository in the Bitbucket. So because Bitbucket is a place where you need to maintain our code. So Java. See, one more thing is whether you deploy the Java based application or Node.js application or Python based application or anything, right? So that's why most of the times companies may ask you, are you aware of different different technologies? Are you know how to deploy the .NET based application, Java based application, Hadoop based application? If you feel difficult, it's a difficult. If you are not feel difficult, it's easy, right? That's why don't blindly say every time I want to deploy the Java based application. Go with the Node.js application. Or you can go with the .NET based application. .NET. And purely we are doing web service deployment or microservice deployment, mobile based application deployment. Even data pipelines. Who come from the database background? Data ops, like database team, like Power BI, ETL, Hadoop, data warehouse, blah blah blah. So that's why different strategies, but tools never change, process never change. That's why you please fix with the Java based application. I deployed it, and since 4 years onwards we are deploying Java based applications. I'm strong and good knowledge at the other applications also. So if you say, then they will realize. So in order to create the repositories, you must go to Bitbucket. So Bitbucket, go to Bitbucket. So Bitbucket is a solution for professional teams. So Bitbucket, and this is Atlassian product, guys. These are Atlassian products. So Atlassian has its own tools like Bitbucket, Bamboo, Confluence, Fisheye, and there is Jira, Jira Crowd, Jira Agile. It has its own CI/CD. That's why some companies use Jira for complete CI/CD pipeline. Some companies use GitLabs. Some companies use GitHub Actions. That's why n number of views are there. So even some companies expect the skills on GitLab or GitHub Actions. GitHub Actions. Inside the GitHub only you can perform entire development deployment. Okay, so login. It is asking login continue Bitbucket. Suppose cannot log in, sign up for account. What is this, guys? Stairs. Okay. One second. I'll go to my email. One second. Along with you, please, guys, you also try to create any account. So let me just download on gmail.com. Recent verification email. Okay. Send. Agree. Okay. So actually I didn't receive it. Just give a second. go to this thing, Just wait, guys. Just give a second. So once you receive the email, you just click on that email link. So you'll able to what level? What is this? Bitbucket, right? So verify your email. Okay, create password. What is that? I need to remember the passwords. Only ATMs, I think. Tell me, guys, where is the traffic signals? Here? కనిపించట్లేదు నాకేమి చెప్తున్నాను.
Second one.
సరే టాల్ స్కిల్ పార్కింగ్ మీటర్స్ ఎక్కడ ఉన్నాయి? Okay, my account was created, but what is our email? Ganesh Monday. I must save these credentials because we are using this Bitbucket as a repository so that I will never forget. Now username is suppose okay. Two apps. Giving username. Now continue. So before we drop in Bitbucket, please tell your experience. What is your describe experience? Some of you pick one. Source control. I have none of knowledge getting this. How many people do think that just like me? What best do you role? Developer. So right now, just like you go with the learning get submit. So this is, got it guys. So when you're looking at Bitbucket, and if you scroll, if you click on the switch, so you can integrate with the Jira software, Confluences, service management, and like these are different Atlassian products. And if you click here, your profile and settings, if you want to see log out, you can log out. You can log out. Just log out. So log on. So email is as, continue. Login. So right, got it guys. And let me sign out from this. Okay. So this is my Bitbucket. So I created repository success. I created a Bitbucket user. You also please create one. Login. Okay. So now see, this is my recent repositories. We have pull request, Jira issues, and everything. Even if you want to import the project from, you can import. I'm going to create a repository. So workspace. See, I'm giving Raju. Project name is. So project name is, for example, CI/CD demo or CI/CD pipeline. A repost name is suppose Spring Pet. This is our project name, and access level. If you remove this, it's become as a public. See, uncheck to make this repository public. I'm going to make it as a private. So default branch name. So you can give as a master if you want. So dot ignore, yes, recommended, because sometime if you want to ignore some unnecessary files, you can go with the dot git ignore. If you go, even if you say no, those files are never recommended. If you click on advanced settings, you can give the description for that. And I'm going to create the repositories. See, the same bit GitHub. So even you can clone your repositories. See, either using HTTPS or maybe SSH. So even you can integrate the source tree is a free tier Git client for Windows. Even VS Code for source code editor developed by the Microsoft. You can clone into the Visual Source Code, or you can clone into the source tree. So like this is our, if you go with the HTTPS, copy this, and go and see. See, my username is DevOps Srini, git clone, HTTPS, DevOps Srini is the username, @bitbucket.org, DevOps Srini. Under there is a repository name called as springpetlink.git. So that's why Bitbucket or GitHub, without Git you can't run it. Git is an important local Git. If you want to push and pull it, definitely Git is. To manage your repository, to host your repositories, to share your code, you need a Git. Got it? So then you can clone this repository from the GitHub, from the Bitbucket. You try to push it. That's why the first thing is once the repository was created, you clone this repository into your EC2 instance or local machine. You try to add our Java code as a pet clinic and push into the Spring Pet Clinic project. So once you update the code into the Spring Pet Clinic, once you update the repository, then you try to run the Maven and generates the packages. That's why I'm requesting you all today, you please create the repositories in the Bitbucket. I will send uh, I will send Java code to you, and tomorrow the same time you please come. I'm repeating. I will finish this task. Once I finish this, then we'll come back to the normal sessions and we will explain it. So configuration is not that much easy, guys. That's why listen carefully. Even parallel, you can practice with me also. By listening, I'm requesting all tomorrow onwards. You please open all your laptops and please configure along with me so that at least you will feel some live practice. Okay. So in order to pull the code and in order to push the code, you need a Git in our local machine. Our local machine is what I'm taking EC2 server. So EC2. Okay. We go to the cloud and we'll create two or three or four or five EC2 servers. One for Jenkins, one for Kubernetes, one for Docker, and one for Ansible. And we'll set up everything because heavy setups. Okay. That's why please create a Bitbucket repository in your machine. Got it? So go to EC2 instance. You check either anyone, either Amazon or Red Hat. But this time I want to cancel. See, I'm going to launch this EC2 instance. You can take either Red Hat or Amazon Linux or Mac, whatever the version, Ubuntu. Okay, even Debian, Microsoft, as you know very well, and I'm going to select it. Actually, I'm going to take, if I say I'm going to change. See, there is a T3 dot medium. If I go, definitely I'm going to charge, because if I have a multiple CPUs and more memory, I can able to. Okay, so I will change my configuration at the Kubernetes cluster, because uh, we need some bit setup, heavy setup, right? That's why if you are in the cloud, choose instance type is also one of the typical scenario. That's why while finishing this entire setup, 8 hours or 10 hours explanation, we are also going to cover a half an hour topic on this instance type, because we only explain on the fly, but this time we'll go deep dively for while selecting each and every EC2 instance, and I will explain the power of how to choose instance type, what are the various recommendations for you. Okay, so here if I go to virtual CPUs, 4 memory, even if I say T2 dot extra large, suppose if I go for virtual CPUs 16 GB. Okay, if we go C4, 8 virtual CPUs and 15 gigabytes. So as of now, we are taking T2 dot macro is only 1 GB RAM. So I'm taking 16 GB RAM. Or if we go T2 dot medium, 2 virtual CPUs with the 4 GB RAM at least. Okay, T3 dot medium, take it. If it is like 2 virtual CPUs and 4 gigabytes. So, or we go with the T2 extra large, 4 and 16 GB RAM. So I do one thing. If you go the T2 large, 2 virtual CPUs and 8 GB RAM, just go and configure. Now I'm going to launch one instances. Go to add storage. Now you can take, definitely I'm going to charge 30 GB of hard disk. Next, add tags. Now this is my first machine is suppose this server should have some let us give a meaningful server name. Suppose what do you say, Java server, Java machine, we can say, or Jenkins server. I cannot say, wait. So Docker server, Ansible server, Kubernetes 3, Jenkins 4, Nexus 5, Sonar Cube 6. So I can say CS server, MS, the CS server, configure security groups. I'm creating new security group called as a CS server. And I will set the port mapping latcher. Launch. And create new key pair. Download key pair. Launch instance. View instance. See, I'm taking T2.launch. Definitely I'm going to more chargeable. But you don't try, you go with the T2.macro. Okay. so it takes some time. So available zone is US West to C, and this is my configuration: instance ID, instance running, instance type t2.launch. Apt into AWS Computing optimized for recommendation, public DNS. So key pair and root, selected the root device. So once it is configured, you try to connect and try to install the local Git. Then you try to access your Bitbucket credentials, and then you need to download our source code. Wait. Two virtual CPUs కాబట్టి definitely కొంచెం so instance selection is very important. Wait. Okay, go back. Taking installation time taking. So in this instance, we'll install the Git, and how to download the code from the GitHub. The same way, there's a Git clone. That's why the next 5 to 10 minutes, not now, tomorrow, 5 to 10 minutes, I will explain the local Git architecture. Instantly, we'll finish. Tomorrow, my target is at least finish the CA part. Finish the CA part. So that, so you record this video, preserve at your end, and this is one more final demo, which are going to integrate all the tools with the scripting as manual as well as scripting. Okay, that's it, guys. It's already time out. Looking at connect to the EC2 instance. Control C. Go back to downloads, and right click, get bash, and SSH. Through SSH we are connecting. Yes. See, when you launch the EC2 instance, you are getting this message, right? What is this? Message of the day. You can also change your message to your name also. So whenever it is, see, we are choosing the Amazon Linux 2, and whenever you log in, it automatically giving username is Stephen user. I don't want. I'm giving exercise to you for you how to administrate your own username and passwords instead of using EC-user. Now I'm trying to install sudo yum install -y git. And git -version. So git -version. So right now I'm using 2.23.4. So while pushing the code or pulling the code from repository, you must have some fair amount of knowledge on the source code repository. So what is a git, local git, how to push, how to pull, how to create a branch, how to revert the code, and what is a reset, revert, re, branch creation, check out the code from one branch to another branch, merging the code from one branch to another branch, viewing the differences, git merge, and what is the difference between a fetch and a pull. So reflux, logs, histories, and what is the webhooks? What is a local Git architecture? How the local Git architecture will recognize the changes while pushing and pulling? What kind of basic things we need to recommend, you need to understand, and snapshots, and what is staging repositories, and what is the local repositories, and what is a Git workflow, and why we need a .git repository. How the Git never automatically track the changes. Keep in mind, it's going to maintain different kinds of objects. So internally, it has its own track structure. So that's why minimum local Git, like Git and GitHub knowledge is required while pushing and pulling. So right now I already created the local repository, shared repository. My repository URL is git clone. This is, isn't it? I'm simply, when I fire this git clone, whenever I fire this git clone, see, right now I'm running EC2 instance on top of my, image on. I'm running a Linux server, and I created Bitbucket account I create a repository Bitbucket account. Bitbucket has its own public hosting repository, and EC2 is one public server. Now paste. So it is asking the password for the Bitbucket. Okay. See, now I got the cloning, git clone. Whenever it is cloning, it is asking the password for my Bitbucket docs. Then if you go on ls, so cd Spring Pipelining project. Right now there is an empty repository, right? You just go ls-la. See, there's a .git. If there is a .git, cannot keep the track changes. That's why the tomorrow will take the entire code and will push here and will push into the Bitbucket repository, and almost will finish the CA process. Okay, so don't miss it. The coming 3 or 4 days, like I explained, I'm going to decide this 10 hours effectively, right? And this is only final demonstration. So again, I don't want to explain again from the scratch training. So that's why in all angles I realized I just want to show the complete pipeline script, and rest of the things we'll see in the regular sessions. Questions or any kind of doubts, any things to ask me, you can please. Even if you come a bit early, I'm very happy. Is it okay if I start at 7:30 Indian IST time? If I start at 7:30 or 7 o'clock, so that's Vijay and okay, Pavan said, Murthy said okay, Kaushik, yes. Naga 7:30 is okay, sir. Vijay. Okay. Yeah, you just only because this is our big tasks, and this is more important, and that's why please bear me 4 to 5 days, because I want to give better complete explanation from the starting of the Git to the ELK Kubernetes cluster. Okay, even Groovy scripting. So we'll show both manual and automation, so that you will be happy for that, and you can start to work with any team. Okay. Yeah, then I do one thing. Tomorrow morning 7:30 to 9:30, even 10, at least 2 to 2.5 hours. Okay. And thank you so much. And see you tomorrow at 7:30.